Hi. Hello. I'm kind of back. It's been a little crazy the last couple weeks. We're gonna get into it's been a little crazy the last couple weeks. Two hurricanes kind of moved through, and we are all good. Everybody's fine. We are fine. We got very lucky with where we're at. Many others were not as fortunate as we were where we are located. And the last couple weeks, we dealt with some power outages, some food loss, and all that fun stuff. But we're doing good. We're fine. We're back. I got school starting back up tomorrow, so all that's fine. However, because of all the delays and the time loss that happened because of the natural disaster events going on, I haven't really had the time to put into the full video that I wanted to do for this month, and I still wanted to put something out. So we're gonna do my personal list of, or at least my current list of movies to watch this Halloween. And it is going to be 10 films that I feel that I've enjoyed very thoroughly over the many years that I've been watching horror films. So, and to keep in mind, this list of 10 films is not in any particular order, because depending on the day that you ask me, that order could change drastically. So we're just going to talk about them. So, coming up first at number 10, we have Evil Dead. Or, more specifically, any of the Evil Dead films of the first 3, that being Evil Dead 1, 2, and Army of Darkness. The early Sam Raimi versions, not the remakes. Although I didn't mind I think the 2013 version. I think it was really well done, really much more on the horror side, which, I mean, it benefited from. But the early Evil Dead films stick out in my mind and will always stick with me for a few reasons. Number one, a little history on it. Evil Dead was a college film project that Sam Raimi and his friends were putting together at their time in university. And as an indie film, it did exceptionally well. Now, there's a little bit of a controversy that comes with the first one, and the second movie is essentially just a retelling of the first in a different way. It's a little more, it sets it, so you have the first movie, Evil Dead, which was the start of it all. Then you have Evil Dead 2, which retells the events of the first one in a different way to get around some of the issues, and to also set up Army of Darkness, which is a fantastic film all on its own. Very funny, very good effects for the time, and also all 3 of them feature the character Ash Williams, who is one of my favorite protagonists in horror films, and especially like out of campy 80s horror films. It's really funny. The scares are good, the effects well done for the budget that the films were done on, and the just concept of the demonic entities coming in. I don't know if I can praise, I don't know if praise is the right word, but hold Evil Dead to itself, if that makes sense. It's a really fun watch. There is a bit of a trigger warning for the first film, with one scene in particular that has garnered a little bit of infamy, and for good reason, but if you can get past the tree scene, there's a treasure trove within this film. Okay, next up at number 9, we have coming in with 2012's VHS. This is found footage and analog horror at its purest form. The concept of VHS is written on its sleeve, pun intended. We have a group of burglars who are hired to go and acquire some kind of specific VHS tape from a location, and what they find is a trove of old VHS tapes, documented and labeled out, each containing various captured content covering paranormal goings-on, and each one is different. Each one covers different kind of themes. You could have sci-fi, you could have body horror, you could have ghosts and goblins and monsters and paranormal rifts that lead to different time. VHS kind of goes all over the place, and it's told in an anthology-like setting where each tape is its own events, and you follow the burglars as they try to watch tape after tape and find the one they're looking for. But there's something darker going on as to why are all these tapes gathered in the same place, and also what is this house? Like, why is all of this a thing, and why are they looking for these tapes? And it is a fun little romp through just an anthology series, kind of like the ABCs of Death. And I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, so we'll just leave it at that. It's a good watch, and there's quite a few of them. The newest one actually just came out not too long ago, called VHS Beyond, and I did watch that one recently, and unfortunately, that one's probably my least favorite, but it's not terrible. So you have, I think at this point now, there are 5 films in the VHS, series, and I don't know. At least the original always sticks out in my mind as one of my favorites that I watch. Usually, probably at least once a year around the spooky season, so go have some fun. The special effects in it are really, really well done, and also just, if you're a fan of found footage, you're missing out if you haven't watched it. So, number 2 on the list, or number 9, I guess, if we're going that way, is going to be VHS from 2012 from Magnolia Pictures. Coming in at number 8 on the list is In the Mouth of Madness, a John Carpenter film from 1994, and the first Sam Neill movie to make it onto this list. Sam Neill, if you don't know his name, you know his face, especially if you've watched the original Jurassic Park movies, and also if you've watched any other kind of Lovecraftian horror film from the 90s, there's a good chance Sam Neill was in them. He likes working and he likes doing what he likes doing, and he does a great job at it. Except for one other entry we'll talk about later. In the Mouth of Madness is where Sam Neill plays the main character, and he is an insurance agent or insurance investigator looking into the disappearance of a horror author for his publishing company to try and handle his accounts and his estates and see if there's any kind of loss associated with him going missing. What follows through his investigation is, well, as I said, it's a Lovecraftian film, so you can imagine the kind of eldritch horror and the mind games and the visions and stuff like that that comes with all of this. And the special effects, I mean, the 90s were kind of the playground for CGI as it was becoming big, so you kind of got to get around that a little bit, but there is some kind of practical effects here that look decent. It is much more of a psychological thing for the majority of the film, so if you're not into the psychological horrors and people going descending into madness, you might not hit on this one, but I thought it did really well. A little fun fact is Hayden Christensen actually has a small role in this movie, and not a lot of people knew that from when I was talking about it with some other people. So if you don't know, Hayden Christensen, if you like Hayden Christensen, he plays a little small role in this movie. Some of his early work. But that is its own thing. We're not talking about that, we're talking about scary stuff. So what happens is, there's gonna be tentacles, there's gonna be oogly boogly monsters and weird culty stuff going on. And if you are a fan of any of that, In the Mouth of Madness 1994 is a film for you to watch this spooky season. Okay, coming in at number 7 on the list is the first and only anime on this list this year, and that is year 2000's Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. Now, if you are familiar with the Vampire Hunter D series at all, you might be asking, well, why are you recommending the sequel and not the original? Well, the answer to that is long and drawn out, if I'm being honest, and I can make my own video on that because there's that much information that can go into it. But the short answer is, yes, it is the sequel, but the two are far spread apart in the chronology because of the way the movies were adapted from the books. The books, I believe there were 13 of them, and the original covers the first book, and the sequel, Bloodlust, the recommendation here, covers, I believe, the third book in the chronology. And they are far enough apart, they don't really have anything to play off of each other, and the animation quality is, in art direction and story, are just, in my opinion, far superior to the original Vampire Hunter D movie. Studio Madhouse went crazy on this film, and if you are a fan of high quality early animation, and by that I mean pre-2000s, pre-digital animation, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is a feast for the eyes. And its themes being gothic horror combined with some cyberpunk influences and just your high fantasy kind of monsters and magic kind of stuff. It's really, really cool to see this spectacle in motion. And the story itself trumps Twilight. I'm sorry, Twilight. But the vampires, the love story, the monsters, the action, the animation, and all of it coming together, I can't recommend Bloodlust enough if you are a fan of animation. So that's why this comes in on this list. Moving on. Okay, coming in at number 6 on this list this year is 1983's Videodrome by David Cronenberg. And look, okay, here's the deal. A Halloween without Cronenberg is a Halloween without candy, in my opinion, so get ready for a weird movie, first off. If you're not familiar with any of Cronenberg's works, it's special. It's hard to describe, but the practical effect, I'm a sucker for practical effects, first off, and if you are too, his films will do it for you, okay? First off, we'll just go with that, but David Cronenberg is known as the godfather of body horror, and his movies' themes usually center around technology and the combination of technology and humans in some way. Videodrome takes that and goes into a little more of the adult territory, talking about with its themes being heavily reliant upon the relationship with sex and horror and just the human psyche, and as well as the way that evolves. Videodrome covers the protagonist, who is the owner of a, I believe, video station. It's been a minute, so I'm doing a lot of this off the cuff here, and I haven't read any reviews or like summaries just to refresh myself. So, but let's keep that in mind here and just go with the flow. But Cronenberg's movies, especially Videodrome, that's a Terrordrome. Videodrome covers the relationship between humans and technology. In this movie specifically, we follow our protagonist, who follows along with this weird broadcasted video channel that goes over the relationships between humans, their next stage of evolution, the relationship between sex and horror, and all of this combines into the fusion of technology and man in a very disturbing way at the end. I don't want to say too much about it, and it's really hard to describe this film without saying too much about it and spoiling things. So if you are a fan of body horror and just the special effects work that comes with over-the-top practical use of effects, give this one a chance and see if it's for you, because it's kind of hard to go into more without spoiling things, and you just kind of got to take it where that's at and go with it. Moving on. Coming in at number 5 on the list, and one of my, probably the favorite of mine, werewolf movie of all time, or at least, very least, it's going to stick with me for the remainder of my life, is 1981's The Howling. The Howling is a very, very early 80s werewolf flick, and honestly, I don't think I've seen a werewolf movie that tops it since I've seen The Howling, and I watched The Howling when I was about 6 years old. It really messed me up when I was a kid, and funny story, it along with Stephen King's Silver Bullet is the reason for me developing a really, really rough fear of the dark early on in my life. There were times when I would be getting up for school and trying to get on the bus to go to school when I was like 6, 7, somewhere, whenever it was that I watched the films, and I broke down crying because it was foggy and dark, and I lived in the country and there wasn't any light out on the mornings, and I broke down crying and refused to leave the house because the werewolf was going to get me. That is when I watched the film, and that is how I took things from that point forward, and that is a special little core memory of mine that I wanted to throw in here. But getting back on topic, The Howling is well, I'm gonna be honest with you, I watch it about every year, and I can't remember what the entire plot is. That's on me, but essentially, it revolves around a reporter or a news anchor who goes through a series of traumatic events and is recommended to go away on a escape into nature with a support group. This commune coming together and being the basis for where all of the werewolf action comes out as it stalks people through the woods of this retreat, and it follows this anchor as she deals with her past traumas, as well as the current state of affairs where they are being hunted by a werewolf, okay? And the practical effects in this film, for its time, are fantastic, and to this day, I believe, still has the best werewolf transformation scenes that I've watched, that I've seen. Take your pick. The Howling is a fantastic film if you like werewolves, if you like the gritty nature of the stalker kind of thing, where they're dealing with this creature of the night that is hunting down the characters. And also, if you kind of like cults, there's a really culty side of this as well, so we'll leave that there as well. The ending was great. It set up the sequel, but unfortunately, I don't think the sequels stand anywhere near the quality of the first film, and they very quickly go off and become silly in their concepts. So The Howling, the first one, 1981, fantastic, great werewolf movie, my favorite that has yet to be topped, and there you go for all you furries out there. Coming in at number 4 on our list is, of course, well, and the only one for this list from the Alien franchise, Aliens. The second one, not the first one. First one's fantastic, much more of that stalker enemy kind of spaceship hiding. Aliens 2 is a feast for yourself. The comedic aspects, the action scenes, it's much more of an action movie than it is a horror film, but it does the two well with the alien concept, as well as just expanding on the lore of the aliens and showing you what the hives how the hives kind of operate, and as well as showing off what the queen alien was. At this point in time, I can't really spoil Aliens because of how big it is, and if you haven't seen Aliens, I don't know what to tell you other than go watch Aliens, okay? I cannot get through a spooky season, or at least a year, without hearing, "It's game over, man! Game over!" Also, can we talk really quickly, and for all of you Halo fans out there, Sergeant Apone, the basis, the inspiration for Sergeant Johnson in Halo. I mean, I don't know how much more I could sell it to you. Alright, Aliens 2, the design work, the action sequences, the campy dialogue between the Marines is really funny, and just overall, Ripley becoming an action hero after the first film. I can't get through a year without seeing that. Yeah, Aliens. Moving on. All right. Okay. So we're gonna take a bit of a controversial thing here, and I'm gonna explain part of this as well. I had a period of my life where I would go to the public library because we didn't have cable, and I would find old, and I mean old from like the 70s and the 80s, B horror movies to watch. I was really into that for a while. I still do it on occasion, but it's not like the main focus. But when I was in high school, that was my film hyper focus for those years. And one of them that I came across is number 3 on this list. And I don't watch it every year. I just kind of watch it whenever it pops into my head, and I go, that would be fun. But it's Peter Jackson's first movie. The man that brought us the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the King Kong adaptation. His first film, titled Bad Taste, from 1987. And I'm going to explain the premise of this movie, and that's all I have to do. Aliens come to Earth to harvest humans as meat for their intergalactic fast food franchise. I don't know about you, but that sells it to me, and it is a blast. Fun facts about it, because I don't really want to spoil this one, because I know many people have not heard of this one, so spoilers away. The film was made on a budget of $10,000, if I remember correctly, and Peter Jackson plays 2 roles in the film himself, as well as having done all of the special effect work himself for the film. That, along with just the over-the-top action montages and silly setups, this film is so much fun to watch, but it is by no definition is it a good film. So let's get that out of the way there. Go watch Bad Taste. It is one of my personal favorites because it's so bad that it's good, not one of those that's so bad that it's boring. You will not be bored. Go watch Bad Taste. On to 2. Alright, on to film number 2 on this list, and it is the second Sam Neill movie on this list. For film number 2 on my top 10 films to watch of this year, for horror spooky season, we have Event Horizon. Yes, the unofficial Warhammer 40k prequel movie, Event Horizon, starring Sam Neill, and I believe Lawrence Fishburne was also in it, if I remember correctly. I don't know how this... Look, okay, in the 90s was a weird time where CGI was becoming really big, so first off, one caution I gotta say is if you don't like really, really early to middle stage CGI before it got really big and after the 2000s, a lot of the special effects in like the space scenes and the ships and all that, it's not gonna do it for you. But if you like over-the-top sci-fi concepts like gravity drives, warping ships into another reality, and then them coming back changed, Event Horizon is the movie for you. Also, if you like Sam Neill movies, Event Horizon is a movie for you. The demonic side of this movie is a little lackluster in my opinion, but it is still a fun watch, and it almost feels like an early attempt at a Doom movie with how some of the sets are laid out and how some of the areas are color-coded in really fun ways. But we have the Dr. Sam Neill, who worked on a gravity drive for a new kind of ship that was going to achieve faster than light travel. And this ship, as it went through its test run, disappeared for years. I believe it's a decade. It disappeared and could never be found, but it one day shows back up in orbit of a planet, of a gas giant, and NASA, or the NASA equivalent of the Event Horizon verse, sends out a crew, as well as the doctor that worked on the star drive, to go and investigate and find out what happened to the Event Horizon. And what follows is just it's a Lovecraftian descent into madness that, unfortunately, I will say is a bit rushed in places, but it is a fun watch if you like those kind of vibes. Again, we talked about In the Mouth of Madness already, so you get the kind of stuff that I'm pointing out here, and I don't want to take too much away from this film if you haven't already seen it. So if you're a fan of like the gothic architecture of starships, if you are a fan of over-the-top sci-fi concepts and the descent into madness storylines of Lovecraftian horror and demonic entities, go and watch Event Horizon, because I do watch this every year during Halloween. On to number 1. Alright, so everything else on this list has high praises in my books as some of my favorite horror films, or just over-the-top sci-fi thriller horror stuff, whatever. All of that, they all have high praises for their own rights, but the number 1 spot on this list goes to probably one of my top 5 films of all time, and that is 1982's The Thing, a John Carpenter adaptation of the 1930s novella short story Who Goes There? Or Frozen Hell in its revised edition. The Thing is the crown jewel, in my opinion, of paranoia horror, body horror, and it is it's hard to even describe everything. The basic premise: alien crash lands in the Antarctic. A research team finds the ship, or the vessel, that it is frozen in the ice. They bring it back, it unthaws, and chaos ensues. It is Invasion of the Body Snatchers meets isolated Antarctic outpost. Kurt Russell plays MacReady, the main the main character of The Thing, and the paranoia sets in as the crew loses numbers one by one as the Thing begins to take over and replicate the researchers at the station as they go about trying to find who is really human and who is a thing. The ending is a bit ambiguous, and you have to come to your own conclusion, which is a fun part about it as well, about who is really a human by the end of this whole experience. It is a treasure trove of high-quality practical effects, scares, storytelling, and it really makes you feel the claustrophobic confines of this station as the researchers are trapped with this thing. Long story short, number 1 on the list, it is a surefire recommendation from yours truly. Go and watch The Thing. Have a great Halloween season. There'll probably be another one of these kind of videos coming out before the end of the month. I just wanted to get something out, but long story short, these are 10 films that could spice up your Halloween season if you haven't seen them, and if you haven't seen them, I recommend that you do watch at least some of them. So, with that out of the way, have a great rest of your season, and there might be a little something else coming soon, so look out for that. See you later, everybody.